What's up, everybody? My name is Tucker. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the Utah Jazz. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like rating on it. Check out my socials up there. Let's go ahead and get started. So basically, the reason I want to talk about the Jazz today is because nobody else is. Nobody seems to care about this team. Nobody seems to have any kind of discussions about them as possible contenders. They just don't even appear to matter to most people going into this upcoming season, which is really, really odd because they've been a very relevant team for the last couple of years when it comes to the postseason. They were unfortunately relevant when it came to the league suspension last year. And by the way, they had the best record not only in the West last year, but in the entire league. But there just seems to be absolutely zero conversations around this team, which is why I want to talk about them today. The way that they played last year deserves, I think, more discussion because they, once again, the year before, in the bubble, were a bit disappointing in the postseason. They had some good moments, but they just, every single year for Utah seems to end in some sort of disappointment. They never seem to overachieve. They always seem to do exactly what you think that they will, or a little bit worse. So they went into last year and they decided, we need to make some changes. We need to be more versatile. We need to play smaller more. We need to shoot more threes. We need to attack in transition. We need to be a high-octane offensive team. And they accomplished all of those things during the regular season. They were a devastating offensive team. They shot a ton more threes. They shot them way better. They figured out a rotation that worked. They basically had 6 or 7 starters on the roster. When you look at Jordan Clarkson, who's a great sixth man, trying to figure out where Joe Ingles fits into the roster, trying to make sure that Mike Conley is healthy. They had a ton of different pieces, as you can obviously tell by the fact that they were a 52-win team with the best record in the league last year. And once they made those adjustments offensively, they were still able to maintain their defensive identity as one of the best defensive teams in the league during the regular season. With Rudy Gobert in the middle, with all these different switchable defenders that have size, they don't have any lockdown perimeter defenders, but everybody can at least get in your way and contest and funnel you into the middle, funnel you towards the rim where Rudy Gobert is waiting for you. That's what their defense has been built around. And everything that Utah set out to accomplish during the regular season last year, they did. They went on crazy winning streaks. They had guys make all-star teams. They had guys win awards. They had the best record in the league, and it didn't matter. The playoffs rolled around, and they did exactly what they always do. They struggled to defend at the same level. Their offense stagnated, and they lost in 6 games to a Clippers team that was without Kawhi Leonard. And again, that speaks to just the legacy of this Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, Utah Jazz team. This era of Utah Jazz basketball has been be good in the regular season, potentially better than people thought you would be during the regular season, and then get to the postseason and disappoint. And the reasoning for that, there's a variety of them. Mike Conley not being 100% healthy, Donovan Mitchell not being 100% healthy at the beginning of the postseason and how that impacted them. We can do the Rudy Gobert thing again if you want to, but the bottom line is they didn't perform. But coming into this season, they certainly should be a bigger part of the conversation when you're talking about contenders, when you're talking about the top teams in the Western Conference, especially considering that the Clippers, who knocked them out, and the Nuggets both have to deal with, and the Warriors both have, all 3 of those teams have to deal with significant injuries to some of their star players to begin the season, whether it be Klay Thompson, Jamal Murray, or Kawhi Leonard. So on paper, when you're looking at the Western Conference, Utah, Phoenix, LA, teams like that should be at the top of the list in terms of not only contenders, but contenders for the best record in the regular season. And Utah very much, it's very possible they could get the best record, but people just, they've learned, accurately, I think, to not take this team seriously until they prove us otherwise. And again, it's just odd how often they either perform exactly at the level that we think that they will in the postseason or underneath it, because they changed their style last year offensively, made a ton of threes. There were times when I thought I was watching like an early Budenholzer era Bucks team out there when I was watching the Jazz play offensively, just absolutely bombing away from 3-point range. They've got the star power at the top in Donovan Mitchell, and they've got this structure and this identity that for whatever reason just doesn't transfer over. And if that continues this season, I would not be surprised to see some significant changes. They've done everything they can to double down and to maintain consistency with this roster, but Joe Ingles will be needing a new contract. Rudy Gobert is on a very, very big long-term contract, as is Donovan Mitchell. I don't think that there's anything remotely close to like Donovan Mitchell being unhappy or a trade possibility here if the season doesn't go as planned this year. But I think that in terms of the way that this roster is currently constructed, the Mitchell, Ingles, Gobert, Quinn Snyder group for Utah if they don't make the conference finals this year and look like a true championship contender, I think there are significant changes. I just don't think that you can continue to run it back year after year after year and see the same thing happen over and over again with some of the same flaws popping up in the postseason each time. So this is a very critical year for Utah. It's one of the reasons that I wanted to talk about them. Now, you can talk about the negative stuff if you want to, but on the positive side for this team, they should be, once again, one of the top teams in the West. Home court advantage will matter much more this year than it has over the last 2 seasons, one of which in the postseason didn't matter at all, and then last year was still kind of iffy in certain arenas, certain cities, depending on what the rules were. And so Utah can certainly look forward to a strong regular season. Again, continuity that they're bringing into this season has continued to be a benefit for them. Hopefully Conley is fully healthy. Hopefully Mitchell is fully healthy, and they can continue to figure it out. They've added some different pieces. They brought in someone like Rudy Gobert that can provide them more versatility on the wing, play a little bit smaller when they need to, but ultimately it's going to come down to the postseason. And unfortunately, I'm landing on the negative side of this argument when it comes to Utah in terms of the expectations for their season in the postseason. I think they'll be a great regular season team. They'll probably be a top 3 seed in the West, especially given some of the injuries to some of the other competitive teams in that conference. But ultimately, if everybody's fully healthy, they'll probably win 50-plus games, and then they'll get to the postseason, and they'll lose to Phoenix, the Lakers, the Clippers, the Warriors, the Nuggets, any of those teams, because we've seen it time after time. And ultimately, I think that there's going to be some changes coming down the road here for Utah if that does happen. The first order of business for me would probably be to see if there is some value out there in exchange for Rudy Gobert. I know that it's going to be tough to try and find a deal for a guy that he's just become the scapegoat for a lot of things, but most noticeably for the way that their defense slips at times in the postseason with him on the floor, his inability to guard. But it's not just that. I think that we're kind of overblowing that stuff a little bit. I certainly talk about it a ton, and it's a huge factor. But it's not just Rudy Gobert standing in the paint while Terrence Mann, shoots threes in the corner and drops 40 points on you. It's the fact that on the other end of the floor, you can't just give the ball to Rudy Gobert when he's being guarded by a 6'6 guy and have him score every single time. I think that's way more damaging than what he does defensively. He's still an outstanding defensive player, and their numbers defensively don't slip nearly as much as you would think that they would given the narrative around Gobert. But if he can't punish that matchup on the other end of the floor, that has necessitated small ball more than anything else, I think, over the last handful of years in the NBA. Is not, man, we need to be smaller to be able to guard all these guys, but more so, if our big isn't an offensive focal point, if he isn't Jokic, if he isn't Joel Embiid, there's no point in having him out there offensively unless he's just going to screen and roll. We'd rather just have the spacing. And so ultimately, if some of those issues prop up again for this team in the postseason, I think they'll look at some kind of Gobert move. And again, I don't think things are going to get super dramatic with Donovan Mitchell, but it's clear that they were a bit concerned about that at the beginning of the postseason last year with his frustration with how he was recovering from his ankle injury and the team not letting him play in Game 1 of the Grizzlies series. Bringing in Dwayne Wade, who is a guy that he has always kind of admired. That is probably just an organization that has proven to be a smart one, being smart and being proactive about making sure that their star player is happy. And among the list of moves to possibly make to change up this roster, trading Donovan Mitchell is at the very bottom of the list. But it is something to keep an eye on if this season doesn't go well. But it seems crazy to talk about drastic changes to the roster, potential coaching changes, trading away someone like Rudy Gobert. It seems crazy to talk about those things for a team that had the best record in the league last year, but I think that illustrates exactly where this Utah team is at, because they could win 60 games this year, legitimately. They could have the best record in the league, and nobody would care. Nobody would take them any more seriously than they have in any other season because they've never proved it. The Lakers could be the 4th seed and have won 49, 50 games, and the Jazz could be the 1 seed and have won 60 games, and everybody would pick the Lakers in a 7-game series, assuming both teams were fully healthy. That's just the reputation that Utah has built. Unfortunately for them, it went from, these guys are a nice, interesting, up-and-coming story. Donovan Mitchell was really good way sooner than we thought that he would be. They beat Oklahoma City in a playoff series. It's all very exciting, and now it's gotten to, you kind of got to prove it now. We have to see something real from you. We have to see a Phoenix Suns-like end to the year for you, where you go on a run, you make the finals, you take advantage of other teams being injured. Yes, you dealt with some of your own injury issues, but so did the Suns, and they were able to take advantage of that and make the finals. They need something like that, I think, to legitimize and prove this core in the postseason. And if it doesn't happen, we could see some changes. It sounds very dramatic. It sounds very odd for a team that, again, had the best record in the entire league last year. But that's just kind of where things are at with Utah. So if you're a Jazz fan, I would be excited. Your team's going to be very good. It's going to be awesome to watch during the regular season. Hopefully everybody stays fully healthy. There are still some adjustments you can make to be even better on the offensive end of the floor. Continue to get a little bit more synergy between Conley and Mitchell offensively. But ultimately, it's going to come down to the postseason, and I would imagine pretty much every Jazz fan knows that at this point. And yeah, that's going to be the end of today's video, and I thank you guys very much for watching. If you enjoyed it, make sure to leave a like rating on it. Check out my socials at the top of the screen. Check out more videos from me, the box on screen as well. Once again, my name is Tucker. Hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.